Kia ora, hello, I'm Philip Duncan. It is Monday the 20th of October. Thank you for joining me. Well, the weather this week is going to be windy at times around New Zealand as we see storms well south of us and highs just to the north of us. And as we go into the long weekend, we've got a mixture of settled sunny weather and some windy, wetter stuff as well. Typical Labour weekend where it's split in half. Let's have a look and see what's going on this morning. A lot of energy up around the tropics this morning. Low pressure zones, thunderstorms, rain and showers. We haven't seen a lot of that so far over the past couple of months. Now we're seeing a bit more energy to the north, but there is high pressure between New Zealand and the tropics, so we're not seeing too much in the way of unsettled weather around the North Island at the moment. But the further south you go, the more likely you are to get rain on the west coast with thunderstorms there. And also it's a bit windy as stormy weather south of New Zealand continues to move by. So let me have a look on the, show you on the air pressure map what I mean. Big storm south of the country, a big high north of us. So that high pressure zone north of New Zealand stopping the low pressure around Vanuatu from coming down towards us for now. And at the same time, it's limiting how far north that southern low can go up into New Zealand. But as you can see, where it goes from the yellow shading to the purple shading, that is the high pressure fading away to low pressure. And that's why we're going to be seeing windier weather over the next few days as the storm tracks by and that high pressure zone is north of us. So that squash zone, that windy westerly area remains around the New Zealand area. So 1 o'clock Tuesday, a windy day around the country, especially central New Zealand. This part right here, top of the South Island, lower part of the North Island. Generally speaking, between about Christchurch and Napier, that's where we're getting the windiest of that weather as we go through Tuesday. Now the polar boundary returns to the lower third of the South Island, bringing wintry conditions for some of you. Maybe some snow around the Alpine passes in the south, and some heavy west coast rain also moves up. As you just saw, a few thunderstorms are in there, and that will slide further into the North Island as we go to Tuesday afternoon. Rainfall totals for the North Island aren't that great, generally speaking. Windy weather means that the eastern side of the country is mostly dry. So I've got a wind map here for 1 o'clock Tuesday showing these areas in purple, the darker shading, gusting over 100 kilometres an hour in exposed areas. So that is mostly around the mountains and ranges, but as you can see around Wairarapa, Upper Wellington, parts of Canterbury, and even around Southland, you may get those strong winds spreading and fanning out further into more populated areas, certainly into the farming districts and growing areas as a result of the windy nor'wester, which turns a bit more westerly for the South Island. Into Wednesday, still got high pressure north of us, low pressure south of us. Now our airflow is coming out of Australia. See the red here? That is the tropical boundary moving into New South Wales. So there's a lot of heat in Australia. And even though the red line doesn't come to us, the nor'westers do out of that same area. So the temperatures on Wednesday will go up around the country. The polar boundary gets pushed southwards for a time. Temperatures are up. You've got subtropical winds around parts of the North Island. So if you're in the east or the very north, it's going to be a warm Wednesday around the country. It's a little bit windy. The windiest weather is strongest around central New Zealand and through the Southern Alps as we go into Wednesday and across Wednesday as a result of that setup. And that brings us to our next wind gust map, which is Thursday morning, 10 o'clock in the morning. These areas here through Canterbury. Now look, this isn't 100% locked in this far out. I mean, it's still a few days away, but the color shading through here is going right up into the 140, 150 kilometre an hour mark. So these are very strong winds through the mountains, but obviously that will come over and into the foothills and maybe even through parts of the Canterbury Plains. And as we go through Thursday, some of that windy weather goes right up into the eastern side of the North Island. There are calm zones as well. It's not windy for everybody, but this is a pretty windy setup on Thursday, really over quite a large part of the country. So if you're at a higher elevation, you're certainly going to notice those winds, but also through Cook Strait as well. So here is the 1 o'clock Thursday setup. Heavy west coast rain, very strong winds, as we just mentioned here. These could be damaging winds through Canterbury up to about the lower North Island and through the Southern Alps. So keep up to date with those Met Service warnings and watches. There will be probably quite a few issued this week by them. Low pressure just off the coast of Southland and just south of Dunedin. Central air pressure estimated to be about 970 hectopascals, very low air pressure, and that's no wonder that we're seeing damaging winds expected just to the north of that. So when you've got low pressure moving in like this, it's all about the exact placement of that central low pressure to work out where the worst of the winds are. So we may still need another day or so to completely lock this in. But Thursday, severe weather risks around the country. So let's go into the long weekend. For those of you heading away on Friday, the weather actually isn't too bad in a number of places. High pressure is building from Australia out into the Tasman and out over the North Island. So apart from some morning showers or patchy rain, that should clear away. Mostly dry by the looks of it, but the polar boundary returns to the lower half of the South Island, which means your temperatures are down. Most of the rain is over in Fiordland. There are a few showers spilling over into Southland, Western Otago, and a little bit further up the west coast. Otherwise, not looking too bad for most places going into the weekend. Saturday is similar to Friday in a number of ways. Now, we've got a westerly flow, southwesterly at the top of the country, west to northwest in central areas, and west to southwest, the southern end of the country. You've still got the polar boundary over Southland, Fiordland, and parts of Otago, so temperatures are down there. Further northwards, not subtropical anymore, but it's still a fairly mild wind if you're on the eastern side, as those westerlies blow through for you, and obviously dry weather, mostly dry at the top of the country and along the whole eastern side of New Zealand, but a few showers out here in the Tasman Sea may be caught up in that west to southwest flow as we go through the weekend. By Sunday, high pressure north of New Zealand dragging down this subtropical airflow over parts of the North Island. So even if your wind direction doesn't change, still a west to southwesterly, the origins are changing. It's getting warmer from where it's coming from. So you might find the temperatures on Sunday lifting up further at the top of the country and eastern areas. The polar boundary still in the same place, still affecting the lower third or even just the lower quarter of the South Island. So polar weather sticks around Southland for the weekend. Sorry to say that. The good news, though, at least it's not a very long drive to get out of it if you wanted to go for a drive to get away from it. But it's going to be a bit unsettled the further south you go over the long weekend. And then we come to Labor Day Monday, which looks fairly typical to me for Labor weekend, where you've got a low pressure zone or a front moving in. So we'll be monitoring this low coming into Fiordland here on Labor Day Monday. West coast rain, but look at the North Island, looks mostly dry at this stage, maybe a few showers coming into the afternoon from Taranaki down to about Wellington, and it's windy from about Christchurch up to Wairarapa, those nor'westers cranking back up again due to that low pressure zone moving through. So it's a fairly unsettled weather pattern going through to Labor weekend, but there are still some large areas of dry and warm as we go into the long weekend. Here is the 8-day rainfall. Basically no rain by the looks of it here for Hawke's Bay. Very little for parts of Wairarapa and right up towards Gisborne, Tairāwhiti. Even the far north and parts of Northland not seeing a huge amount of rain. Similar story around Canterbury. The further you are to the coastline, the lower the rainfall totals will be. But look at the west coast. We're talking about 300 millimetres or more falling over there in the darkest blue shading. So there is a lot of rain coming for the west coast this week. Please do keep up to date with those Met Service warnings and watches. Wind, rain, potentially snow for the Alpine passes, and of course there'll be a number of marine warnings being issued as well. So not the perfect weather, but that's typical for this time of the year. Thank you for joining me. See you again tomorrow, Tuesday, with our next New Zealand update and our next outlook for Labor weekend.